an absolute privilege today for Turf Business TV. We're with what some people regard as a legend in the industry, John Mallinson of Mallinsons. John, thank you so much for taking out time today, and I know it is that mega busy period of the year for you, isn't it? So you probably,
it certainly is.
The head is spinning and you've got many plates that are being juggled at the moment.
Yes.
Let's start at the beginning, shall we? You were telling me earlier you didn't actually set out to get into grounds care. You set out running the family smallholding.
That's right. I was running the family smallholding. My father worked outside, and I was 17, 18, and we had a 1/10 of an acre greenhouse, and it was my job to grow a crop of lettuce in the spring and a crop of tomatoes in the autumn.
And you were doing all that by hand?
I was digging the greenhouse by hand. It used to take me 4 days to dig it.
So mechanisation came to you kind of a little bit by fortuitousness, I think.
It was a bit fortuitous. A man came one day to buy some turkeys that we had, and he said he had a rotavator. It was broken, but he only wanted £5 for it. It was a Howard Gem, which was the premier rotavator at the time, and I got there before he did. It took me £40 and a few weeks to fix it, but eventually it was never considered the right thing to do to rotivate a greenhouse.
Right.
But we move with the times, don't we?
So even back then you were kind of leading the pack, as it were, and
Yeah.
innovating. So you were doing that for some time before you actually got it, anywhere near a project like this here at Old Trafford.
Yes. Started by using the rotavator to rotivate gardens. We used to charge £1 100 square yards. Even rotavated the brickworks. The brickworks were losing capacity in their kilns because of the dust on the floor. So I rotavated the dust on the floor, and I had to wear Wellingtons because the dust was hot. And I had 2 buckets of water, and I just jumped in the bucket of water every lap.
I think there'd be some regulations against that.
Yes,
now,
I'm sure it wouldn't be allowed now.
So you're doing that for a while, and I think you told me earlier up until about the age of 36, 18 to 36.
I was doing just landscaping, and I had this desire for a farm, but all the time I was realising that farming was moving one way and I was moving another. I was picking up skills that had nothing to do with farming, and farmers were learning things that I wouldn't have been able to keep up with. As a teenager, I'd been working 50% of the time in the greenhouses and 50% on farms, so I was okay for that while, but then eventually. So I got to 36 approximately, and I decided there was probably an industry in sports grounds which was nearer to farming than doing gardens, which didn't really massively interest me, but it was a source of money.
And was that a particular area of sports grounds, cricket, football?
It was golf at the time, and yes, I remember the first thing I did, I bought a holocorer, second-hand holocorer, and I did Haydock Park Golf Club, holocored the greens on there for them. I didn't know how to use a holocorer, but I read the book.
Right.
And the greenkeeper Roy Stapleton, the greens were absolutely superb. And I go in the middle of this green with my holocorer, and that's how you start. That's what the book said. Start in the middle and go round in circles, and ever increasing circles, and do the green. I couldn't believe that I was going to damage this green. It was beautiful. And a sentence that's stuck with me, Roy Stapleton, the head greenkeeper, said, I said, it doesn't need doing. I really wanted to go away. I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
He said, look, if you do it, it'll take me 3 weeks to get it right. If we let it go off, it'll take me 3 years. And that sums up a lot of my job, actually.
Okay. So maintenance, some hollow coring. When was the first big construction that you did?
Probably football, Everton and Manchester United, but Everton was £19,000,
Okay.
1984. Today it would be more like £1 million. In 1984, if you'd have said to me, here's £1 million, I'd have had to give you £9.9 million change because I wouldn't have known how to spend it.
And still
the knowledge wasn't there.
Still been 80 grand up on what you'd have.
Yes, it would have been. Yeah.
But you started off with a golf course, I think, didn't you, in terms of the construction?
The first construction job, yes, was a 9-hole golf course in Ashton Makerfield. Built a new golf course in the grounds of a previous manor house. £5,600, 27 tees, 9 fairways, 9 greens, quite a few bunkers. The architect was Mr. Hawtrey, and he said that if I could grow grass, he'd show me what a golf course should look like, and that's exactly what he did.
Because you didn't really know the first thing about
I knew
golf,
nothing at all about golf. I didn't know, of course it wasn't really on television. If it was, it would have been black and white.
Yeah.
I didn't really know anything about it. I'm brought up in a very agricultural background, and we don't go in for sports very much in farming.
Right.
It's golf certainly is very unusual for a farmer. But yes, I learned, and I did another little golf course for a Manchester businessman in Altrincham, and did general rebuilding of greens, rebuilding of tees, and gradually rebuilt Formby fairways. Generally did quite a bit of work on golf. At the same time, I was doing bigger jobs for big builders like the reservoir for Prescott, a huge reservoir, a very big job for me at the time, which was £100,000, and a frightening amount of money for me at the time.
So you use the word frightening there, but you don't seem to me like you've been frightened of trying to do something and expanding your knowledge. You've kind of taken things, not necessarily in your stride, but you've attacked them rather than run away from them.
Yes, I think I've always stayed roughly within my means financially, and I work on the principle that 90% I've done before and 10% I've got to guess at, so that's not a bad sort of ratio. I don't mind guessing at 10%. I wouldn't like it the other way around, 10% and then 90% to guess. I wouldn't like that.
So you kind of manage the risk, is that
Yes,
right?
yes.
So your step into other areas in terms of, you're very well known for football pitch construction and maintenance and renovations.
Yes, the football pitch construction, I built up a relationship with one of the former lecturers at my school college called Mike Harbridge. He started a company called PSD, Professional Sports Turf Design.
Yep.
I learned a tremendous amount from Mike. He's a soil scientist and just about the best there is. And so I learned very quickly how to do things properly. And I enjoy doing them properly as well.
And you say you started at Everton.
Everton was one of the early ones, Blackburn Rovers, Stockport County, Tranmere Rovers, to name but a few, yes.
So they're all northwest,
They were, yes.
but you've spread your wings a bit further. than that
Wolves, did Wolves in 1980, I think.
Yeah.
Manchester United, yes, done quite a few. And one of the biggest and probably most revolutionary was Glasgow Rangers.
Right.
And that was 1994, 94, yes, 94. I was very afraid of, I'd heard it rains a lot in Scotland, so
But you're coming from Manchester,
yes.
you should be afraid of the rain.
Well, I was afraid of digging the pitch up and then not being able to put it down again because of the weather. So I spoke to Mike, and I elected to use a stone carpet, which means that I had put in the drainage layers to start with, which meant I'd made it bomb-proof.
Okay.
And as far as I know, that's the first stone carpet pitch that has ever been done in the country.
Right.
It's the same as a big golf green,
Okay.
and the same principle.
So is that where you took the principle from?
I guess I did, but I really wanted to be able to defend myself against the potential bad weather in Scotland, and I would say it worked. Yeah.
Okay. And did you encounter bad weather? Was it a wise move, or was it just...
It didn't matter,
No.
so I can't really remember. The only thing I remember is how terrifying working in Scotland was. I promise you, if £50,000 would have wiped Scotland off the face of the map, I would have paid you gladly, because I was terrified of the job. In a way, it did me good, because I was in at the deep end and I had to do it and I had to get on with it. And you know, when you don't want to go to school, that was me first thing in the morning. I didn't want to go to school, but did it on £35,000 a week penalty.
Right.
And finished with about 6 hours to spare.
Okay.
Having said that, we finished on the Sunday. On the Monday, I think I suffered from Stockholm Syndrome. I didn't want to come home.
Okay.
I stayed there, I sat in, and I was waiting, basically, if we'd seeded it, I was waiting for the grass to grow.
Right.
Drove home that evening. I stopped at a transport cafe. You've got to remember, Rangers is big news in Scotland. I picked up a Rangers magazine and I opened it, and my photograph's in it.
Is that the first time you'd seen yourself?
It's the first time I'd seen myself, yeah.
Okay. So, scary ride for that one, but set you up for even bigger things to come, yeah?
It did set me up. Nothing could frighten me after that, I think. I actually did a presentation to the IOG, and apparently I sounded like Les Dawson.
Okay.
I told them how bad it was and how difficult, and it was very, very well received. It was received in the way I'd meant it to be. I tried to do it again later on for Bali, and I couldn't repeat it because the mood had gone.